Hello everyone, my name is Sam, and today I am sitting down over Skype with Mr. David Koonce. He is the bassist of the band Within Reason, perhaps the most successful purposefully unsigned rock band in America today. These guys have performed on TV shows, they've performed at the Grammys, and their most recent single, Enemy, off of the After the Crawl EP, which I have signed right here by all the members of the band. Thank you for that, by the way.
Yeah, nice.
It peaked at number 46 on the active rock charts. Pretty impressive stuff considering that they have never been affiliated with a record label. Mr. Koonce, David Koonce, whatever you want me to call you, welcome.
Yeah, man, thanks for having me in. It's great to be here over the World Wide Web.
Yeah, the internet's a magical thing. Otherwise, I'd have to wait for you guys to come back down here to tour. And no, you're in Birmingham, Alabama right now, and I'm in South Florida.
Yeah, man, it's wild. Yeah, we just got home yesterday, finally.
So let's start from the beginning. The band was founded coming up on almost 10 years ago, back in the spring of 2005. However, according to WBHM-FM, singer Chris Dow and drummer Griffin Zarborough, I'm sure you know who those guys are, that's for the purpose of the benefit of everyone at home. They started playing together back in the fall of 2004. How did you get on board?
Chris and I were roommates at Alabama. We were in college, and we kind of made a living playing acoustic shows around town, and I was in a band then, and that band kind of fizzled, and I moved back to Birmingham, and they had the Within Reason thing going on, and I kind of ran some sound for them. And when it got serious, I started writing songs. They brought me on, and then we really kind of hit the ground running, putting the songs together for our first record.
So, I'm guessing now that we know that you joined the band a little bit later on, do you know why they named the band Within Reason?
I do. We used to practice at, Griff had a house on the south side in Birmingham, and it was, we'd practice in the living room, and the neighbors would always put up with it till about 10 or 11 o'clock, and then they would call the police, but the same cop would show up every single night. And he was really cool about it. He would just say, look, take a break, and you turn your volume down, but keep it within reason. You guys can play more. And we always say that we were always looking for a name, and we say that the name literally knocked on the door. We just decided that's a perfect name for us, so we used it.
That's a pretty cool story. By the way, I should say, nice job wearing the official merchandise on camera right now.
Oh yeah, product placement, my man.
Yep, that's how you sell T-shirts or hoodies in your case right now. Now, 6 months after the band's first demo, you guys performed the song "Favorite Sin" live on the TV show One Tree Hill, thanks to an online poll where you garnered over 50,000 votes. Now, how important has the internet been to your band's success?
That was the start of a massive success we had. At the time, it was MySpace, which MySpace was probably more beneficial to artists than it was just individual people that wanted to socialize, because social media was brand new. But with the band aspect of MySpace, we could reach fans, millions of fans, in one day. You know, instead of plastering flyers all over town, if we had a show, or a show we didn't have, a city we didn't have a show in, you could do it via the internet. And we could always get in touch with fans all over the world from our laptops. And now, I don't think you can do it on your phone then, but now you can do all that from your phone. So that's a massive thing that started, and that was about, 2006 is when it started getting big, and then obviously it transformed into Facebook, which it's going somewhere else now. I don't think anybody knows where it's going yet. But that was a huge thing for us, because it got our name out there right at the peak of that social media. And that was a massive, massive thing for us to gather new fans.
Now, on the line of thought about the band's successes, in 2013, the song "We'll Have It All" won an online contest sponsored by Microsoft and CBS. You performed at the Grammys.
Yeah.
Let that sink in for a moment. Okay, that's enough. Could you tell us about the experience?
Man, that was the coolest thing I'd ever done up until this year. It was really surreal. The whole deal with that was we had some friends in a band called Almost Kings that won the inaugural contest they did for that. And we always thought it would be a cool story to try to win it the next year. And we did. I think we received over 1.5 million votes, which is a little mind-boggling. But the thing was, we were supposed to go play a show, we were going to shoot a commercial, and then we were going to go home. We were supposed to be in LA for 3 days, and we ended up staying 12. We pretty much talked our way into the red carpet. We talked our way into the Grammys. got out there to say, like, how can we make the most of this situation? So we turned 3 days into 12 days and got a lot more contacts. I think we were on the cover of the LA Times one day, which I don't think that was part of the package. It just, the buzz started happening around LA, and all these things started happening, and momentum kept drawing, and then next thing I know, we're in the hotel another night, and then we're in the hotel another night. And then finally, 2 or 3 days after the Grammys, we finally went home.
I'm kind of curious now how you sweet-talked your way onto the red carpet.
I don't really know. I know when we got there, that was my first question. I was like, can we go to the Grammys? They were like, no way. I was like, well, a couple of days later, I was like, well, can we do the red carpet? They were like, there's no way. And then we just kind of got to know everybody at CBS and everybody at Microsoft. And they, on a personal level, they started liking us. And then we played our show, and after our show was over, we were in the green room, and the Microsoft executives were in there, Grammy people were all in there, and we were all kind of schmoozing, and we had T-shirts laid out on the table and getting to meet everybody. Then they came in and handed us an envelope in front of everybody, and I opened it up, and it was like the pass that sits in the limo that gets you onto the property. So they were like, you're going to the Grammys, and that was kind of a weird thing because nobody was prepared for that. So I think I remember walking down to Hollywood Boulevard the next day, the day before the Grammys, and buying a suit at a shop. And I remember thinking, like, I spent all this money on a suit, and I was kind of having, like, buyer's remorse on it. But I was walking back to the hotel thinking, if there's any day in my life I need to look the coolest, it's going to be tomorrow. So that's kind of how I got over, like, buying the suit. But I felt like it was cool, man. That was probably the neatest thing I've ever done.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I'd like to perform at the Grammys one day, but I guess I should probably find a band first.
It's a good start. Or you just play country music and you don't really need to work at all.
Like Aaron Lewis?
Man, Aaron Lewis is one of the hardest working dudes on the planet Earth.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Now I'm kind of thinking I should probably clarify my earlier comments. I am a fan of Stained, but then again, if you mess up the national anthem in Game 1 of the World Series, you got to be prepared for some flack.
Yeah, I think, everybody gets nervous. If you don't get nervous, then you're in the wrong business. So, and, I think it's an important thing to do, just to not be perfect, show, like, your flaws. But, it is what it is. At least you got to go to the World Series.
Exactly. It's a free ticket.
Yeah.
Now, I've seen you guys... Oh, sorry? Did you say something?
You probably got really good tickets.
Probably. Now, earlier in 2014, the first track off of the After the Crawl EP, Enemy, it reached number 46 on the active rock charts, as I mentioned just a little bit earlier. Now, what kind of feeling comes with seeing a song that you wrote and recorded on the charts?
It was really cool to see it on the chart, but the coolest part about seeing it on the chart was if you look at the media-based charts, it'll have, like, the number, and then the name of the song, then the band, then the label name next to it. And ours would be like number 46, Enemy Within Reason, NA. Because we are our own entity. We didn't have a label. To me, that was kind of cool to be in the mix with all these big bands that are label bands, and we somehow almost cracked the top 40 on our own without a label. So that was a pretty cool thing to see.
Now, I've seen you guys live twice, speaking of tickets, both at very large outdoor festivals. On tour with Seether and Godsmack, which you guys just wrapped up a few months ago, you played some packed indoor stadiums. Yesterday, you just finished a tour with Nothing More, which is another band that everyone should check out, where you played some smaller clubs. Do you get a different dynamic from the audience depending on where you play? Do you prefer larger venues or smaller ones?
Right now, I prefer the larger ones because it's just one of those things when you start playing music, you always dream about, like, the walk down the hallway to the arena show, which is really cool. The small venues are cool because we can hang out with the fans afterwards. It's either more accessible that way. So I think I kind of love both. Right now, I can do arenas. I can do an entire arena tour again, for sure. But it doesn't really bother me. Clubs are fun too. So as long as we're playing, that's great. But if I had to pick today, I would do the bigger shows.
Now, you've performed alongside some major rock acts like the Plain White T's, Seether, Godsmack, Chevelle, Stained, Pop Evil, Stained, once again, there's Aaron Lewis, and Blues Traveler. Now, hopefully this list came from Wikipedia, so I'm hoping this is right. You've had songs breach the top 50 active rock charts. You've performed at the Grammys. But perhaps the band's most impressive feat is that you've done all of this without ever signing to a record label. How do you do it? What is this ludicrously successful business model that you employ?
Well, I tell you what happened was in 2010 we signed a management deal with a company that had some really, really large acts. Both of their acts had a #1 record at the time we were with them, so we kind of got pushed to the back burner. But instead of being down about that, we just paid attention. So we had an entire year with a major management company and learned how they did everything. So we just took notes and thought to ourselves, you know what, like, why do we even need these people that won't call us back when we can do it ourselves? So, with that being said, we took about 2 years devising this plan, and then last year we finally decided to do the radio plan, and it was literally kind of an all or nothing situation with the radio, because we had to raise our own money to pay for the radio campaign. So we were reaching out to some investment people trying to raise the money, and we had a deadline, which was March 1st, to raise this money to start the campaign. And I'm not kidding you, man, I was pacing my house on February 28th, waiting for this money to come in. We got it at like 9:30 that night, and the campaign started. But it was an entire process of learning everything we could learn about it, everything we knew we needed to know, the people we needed to work with. And then once we thought we had everything we needed for the ammunition, we just pulled the trigger on it. And once you start a campaign, you just kind of have to see where it goes.
Now, you mentioned that you raised some money. A lot of smaller bands these days are going to websites like Kickstarter or Indiegogo or Pledge Music. Do you think that that's a viable way of kind of getting your band out there?
Yes and no. I have some mixed emotions about it. I feel like sometimes, not always, but sometimes that kind of gives people a sense of obligation, that the band has some obligation to them, which is fine to an extent, but from a business side of it, we kind of like to keep things in-house a little bit. I mean, there's public things you can do as an artist, but in my opinion, like the back area, the behind the scenes, like you don't want people to see the pulleys and strings. I kind of like to keep that kind of on the private business side, which, I mean, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Kickstarter and Indiegogo. We've got friends that do it. It's a very difficult way to do things, and as a band like us, we've had 2 different fan vote contests that we've had to do to get certain levels in our career to work. It's very tasking to be asking your fans for something of that magnitude. Does that make sense? Like we always said that, after the Grammy thing where we pounded the internet about vote for us, vote for us, vote for us, I always said we'll never put our fans through that again. If that makes sense.
It's understandable. I don't want to see my Facebook news feed blowing up with, go vote for me, go vote for me, go vote for me. I actually just had a friend in a band who's doing that right now, but I'll withhold names so that he doesn't get offended.
Sure.
Now, because you fund yourselves, do you ever feel pressured to put out radio-friendly material so that you could try to attract a bigger audience, or do you value artistic integrity above all?
We absolutely value the artistic integrity of our music. We wrote our first album in '06, and we wrote those songs that we wrote some songs we thought sounded good. There really wasn't any substance except for like 1 or 2 songs that meant something to us, and it was kind of an empty thing. And then when we did Bloodshot Life, those songs are all about a real person that we know, or a real experience that we know happened to us or somebody else we know, and that really mattered to us, that the songs meant something, because every time we would play that song, it would kind of take you back to where you were when you wrote it, and then just like any other music, it kind of morphs and it grows into something else that means something else. And then the third record, instead of trying to write a record that meant something, we just took some things that we knew that we wanted to write about, and let's just see what happens, see what comes out. And that's why After the Crawl is so much different than Bloodshot Life, like musically, because let's just write some things, see what happens, and that's what came out, and that's what we stuck with.
For those of you who haven't listened to it at home, After the Crawl is an incredibly diverse EP. It's got the rock sound. It's got a little bit heavier stuff like the song Control. Yep. Songs like Control and AO Technology have some more electronic influences. AO Technology could even be defined as a rap rock. It's a total departure.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually a Justin Timberlake song.
It's a Justin Timberlake song?
Yeah, that's actually, yeah, isn't that crazy? That's a song that Justin Timberlake and 50 Cent wrote, and Timberland, I think, is a writer on that. We used to warm up to it in the studio when we were getting ready to play. We would always mess around with that song as a joke, and our producer was like, "Man, that's really cool. Let's lay that down." So we laid it down, and the initial idea was we were going to put 5 songs on After the Crawl, and then AO Technology was going to be a song that wasn't on the record, but we were going to release it before After the Crawl came out as like a bonus, like a teaser.
Yeah.
And when we got the post-production in from the studio, we said we would be crazy not to put this on the record. So it's kind of fun to see that song when we play it live, and there's always, a handful of people up front. You see the light bulb go off when they recognize it, and they're like, "Oh my God, it's a Justin Timberlake song." But see, the thing is, I never heard the original version until way after we recorded it. So it is what it is. I think our version is a lot better. But
I don't exactly listen to Justin Timberlake, so I'd have to agree off the bat. Covers can be a really interesting thing because you can either go the really more traditional route, or you can try something totally different.
I always say, it's cool to keep the skeleton and the bones of the song, but everything else, do it your own way to make it fit the way you would have done it. Because everybody's got that song. You're like, "Man, I love the song, but it could be so much better if they would have done it this way." So that's kind of how we looked at that song.
I don't know if you know a smaller band called Letters from the Fire, but they just released a single of Eleanor Rigby, a Beatles song of all things, and they turned it into a metal song, and it actually sounds really cool.
We just toured with them. We left the Godsmack Cedar tour at 3 days off, and then we went on the road with Pop Evil on the first leg of their North American tour, and Letters from the Fall was the first band on those shows. So we got to meet them and hang out, and they ended every show with that song usually.
They seem like the kind of guys that would be pretty cool to hang out with.
Very cool.
Love that song. Now, that kind of leads, the previous discussions kind of lead into my next question. It's about evolution as a band. Do you feel like there's a need to evolve, or does it kind of happen on its own? Is it the producer that you're working with?
I feel like, yeah, there is a need to, and yes, I think it happens on its own. Forcing something artistically is always a mistake, in my opinion. I absolutely live by the rule, like, you never want to make the same record twice. The best, example of that is, Breaking Benjamin is a band that I love. Love everything they've done, but every one of their records sounds the same. And you don't really, in my opinion, we don't want to do that. Our next record that we're going to start recording next year is going to sound different than the one that's out now. And that's important to me. Linkin Park's pretty good at that. Pearl Jam is really good at that. They never put the same record out twice. And to me, that's just something, it makes you want to look forward to what that band's going to do next. And I can't wait to see what their record's going to sound like. Chances are somebody's going to hate it. Chances are somebody's going to think it's the greatest thing you've ever done. That's the cool thing about being an artist is it doesn't really matter what they think,
Yeah, I don't know if you heard the new AC/DC album. As much as I love AC/DC, this album, Rock or Bust, it sounded exactly like everything else they've ever put out.
Yeah, I've heard the single that's out.
Play Ball.
Yeah, Play Ball, but they still sold 750,000 copies in the first week.
Well, that's because they're AC/DC.
You're exactly right. But, they've been putting out the same record for 30 years.
You guys have had 10. Now, while we're talking about things staying the same, changing, do you ever look back at anything that you recorded a long time ago and wish you did something differently?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that's on Bloodshot Life that, we wrote those songs a certain way, and half of the record was written before we went into the studio. And we were playing a couple of things live, but we went in and did half the record with 5 of the songs we already knew, and then we wrote the second half of the record while in the studio. But the thing about when you write a song and you record it, then that's the song. But the songs that we did that were already written, as we played them live every night, and as we saw people react to them and stuff, you start changing little bitty pieces here and there in the song. So there's a lot of things that we do on those songs live now that we don't even do. They're not even on the record. Like we have a song called No Secret that we cut out an entire part of that song live. And looking back, I wish we would have done it the live version on the record, but that was one of the songs we had written halfway through. So that's one thing on the new record we're going to change is we're probably going to play all the songs live for a while before we go in and record them, for two reasons. The first thing is you want the song to kind of age and mature and morph into what it's going to be. And at the same time, we want our fans to know these songs, so when the record comes out, they're waiting to get the record because they've been wanting a copy of this certain song or that song since we've been playing them out.
Now, I've kind of just been wondering, because you mentioned you wrote half of the record in the studio. Do you feel pressured at all while you're recording in the studio to write songs in a certain amount of time because you only have a certain amount of studio time?
Yes. When we did that record, we went through a personnel change halfway through. Because we had 5 songs done, basically when you do a record, even if there's 10 songs on the record, you want to have 20 songs ready. And then you kind of, it's like some bands that have the money, they'll record all 20 songs and decide which ones they want. But we couldn't decide what we wanted, and it was kind of one of those things where we had like a month to finish the record, and we had pieces of these songs all over the place, and we didn't know what to do. So we went to a guy named Matthew Mayfield, who's an artist. He's from here in Birmingham. We just went over and sat with him, and we were going through these songs, and he was kind of helping us put them together. And we couldn't come up with something, and he finally was like, "What do you guys have in the trash can that you threw out?" And every song we pulled out of the trash can made the record, and 2 of them were singles on the record.
So will we ever see those songs that didn't make it? Will they ever see the light of day?
They will. It's weird. It's interesting. Sometimes songs aren't ready. You know, we had some songs that we wanted to do for that album that I thought were great songs, but as far as the flow of the record and the way the record felt as a whole, these certain songs would have made the record feel weird. You know, even though like After the Crawl is so diverse, you know, we spent a lot of time with the playlist to listen to that record and you know how those songs go together. You know, Enemy is number 1, and what's going to come after that to make it, you know, what's going to make that record flow. So there's like all these little aspects that go into, you know, the way your body hears these things, the way your brain reacts to certain songs. You know, a good example I can give you is when Rage Against the Machine put out their second album. People of the Sun was the first song, Bulls on Parade was number 2, but everybody, like when you hear People of the Sun, you are already anticipating that snare drum hit for Bulls on Parade to start. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. It's a very good album, Evil Empire.
Yeah, so like that, you know, that's what you kind of have to look at. And there were songs that I really liked that were on Bloodshot that weren't ready for Bloodshot Live, and I thought we would get to them for After the Crawl, but they weren't ready for that one either. So they could come out on the next one. I don't know. We haven't really gotten into a lot of pre-production on it. There's a couple we've had for probably 7 years that they'll one day see the light of day. I just don't think the time's right. You know, timing is everything. Chemistry is everything. It all has to kind of match up musically to make it happen, you know, at a certain time. So you'll probably hear some. I mean, there were a couple of songs from our between our first record and our second record that we did record, and they didn't make the record, but we started playing them live a little bit, and we did release them maybe as like bonus tracks, but since then they've kind of fizzled away. I mean, I don't even know if they're even available anywhere, but we did do some stuff like that. There's some hidden gems out there.
So basically in this interview, we've already established that you're going to do a live album and you're going to do a B-sides compilation album.
I'd like to do, I would definitely like to do a B-sides. I've always wanted to do an acoustic record, which we have talked about doing it where we do a show, like a DVD to go with it, where we take, because we have acoustic versions of our songs that are a lot different than the electric version. Like we've got a version of Here Comes the Light that's all piano, which is really cool.
I was actually about to say that would sound cool acoustic.
I mean, I'll send you a link to it. I know it's somewhere. I know we recorded it. I think we went on a TV show, and they wanted us to perform, and we showed up with a piano and acoustic guitar, and they were like, "What is this about?" So we ended up doing Here Comes the Light, completely acoustic. I was playing acoustic guitar. We had a piano player and Chris sang it. It was super, super slow, and I thought it was fantastic.
Now, when we met each other in person, it was at Uproar Festival in August, Tampa, Florida. You hyped me up for your response to this next question. It's especially relevant now with CISPA going through the Senate as we speak and the Pirate Bay's servers being raided by authorities in Sweden last week. It's time to deliver on your promise. What's your take on music piracy?
Well, it's very interesting. At this point where my career is, I don't really care if you steal my record. Because where we're at now is we need people to hear the songs, hear the band, to learn about the band. We even encourage sometimes when we give out records, we're like, hey, burn this for your friends. We don't care. But there is a line that draws to that. Like right now, I'm trying to get people to hear my songs so I can further my career in this business. But when stealing music becomes where it's taking money out of my pocket, that's where it's a little different. Does that make sense? I'm kind of like, I think every band wants their songs out there. There's a lot of noise out there, and who's going to be the loudest is who's going to get noticed. So you want your music out there, but at the same time, when it gets out there and people start stealing it, it kind of hurts your pocket a little bit. But at the same time, there's nothing you can do about it. I don't think anybody will ever stop from stealing music, ever.
So in other words, it's okay to steal or acquire, as I like to say. It's okay to acquire a smaller band's music at first, but then as they become more established, you should probably start buying it?
Not necessarily. It's okay if you want to steal my album right now. I'm okay with that. Here's something I always stood with. Say you went to a torrent and you downloaded After the Crawl, right? Well, you ended up loving that record, and you end up listening to that record every day. It's on your iPod. You're telling your friends about it. You're burning it for your friends. Why can't you just go pay $5 and buy it again? Just go buy it. I know you already have it, but if you love the artist so much, love the music so much, just go give them $5. Does that make sense? It's like, if you hated the record, then you're not listening to it. If you love the record, it's almost like you get a free preview, I guess, is an easier way to say it.
This isn't just sucking up. Before I ever buy an album, I do try to stream it on YouTube, and then if I like the artist enough, then I will go out there and buy a physical CD.
I do that. I got two monitors where I'm sitting right now. I've got Spotify up on my right-hand screen, and every day I sit here when I work and I listen to it. If there's somebody I like, then I pull my iTunes up and I go buy the record.
I've got a long list on my phone of songs that I want to download, and I've got an even larger CD collection upstairs in my room. Now, you're from Alabama, as we've established already.
Yep.
So here's an easy question to justify why this interview is going up on the Sports Section's YouTube page. The Crimson Tide.
Oh, yeah.
Great football team or greatest football team?
Greatest football team.
I guess that's not hard to argue. They've only lost to Ole Miss. They shut out FAU and Texas A&M.
Oh, yeah.
They're performing pretty well this year.
Yeah, finally. We were touring the entire time, almost the entire season. And the only game we really got to sit down and watch was the Ole Miss game. And as soon as the game ended, we had to go on stage. We were in North Dakota, where nobody cared about college football, but the people in our dressing room. And it was like a heartbreaker that we had to experience that and then go play in front of 10,000 people.
Didn't you guys write a fight song for Alabama or something?
We did, yeah. It's called Elephant Fight, and we wrote it in 2009, I think. No, I can't remember when we wrote it, but I can tell you this much. Maybe we wrote it in 2010.
It's flashing up on the screen right now.
Okay. Well, whichever one it is. But we did multiple versions. So we did one, and it mentioned that Alabama had 13 national championships. Well, then they won number 14. So we had to go in and re-record that part and say that they won 14 national championships, and then they won another one. So we went back into the studio, and we recorded 15, 16, 17, and 18. I swear to you, I've got all these, a master file on my computer, so if they win one this year, then I'll just throw that one up on YouTube and we'll change the name of it. So it's pretty cool. That was a big thing. A lot of people here, or in Alabama especially, are huge Alabama fans. Well, we were an Auburn fans, whatever. So we kept thinking of something that would be fun to do that's different and something that we thought, on a financial standpoint, could be very, very good for us. And why not put something out for Alabama football? I always said that you could take a dump in a brown bag and put an Alabama football sticker on it and sell it.
So, once again, another shocking revelation from this interview. Within Reason can predict the future. 18 national championships coming up.
Well, at least, if they get to 17, then we'll just go back in there and re-record the next 5 championships. Hopefully they'll win 100.
I'll root for whatever college accepts me at this point.
Fair enough.
Now, I'd like to shift gears for a moment and talk about some other things you're involved in.
Sure.
You run a production company called Capture Fate Films, and you're involved with a clothing company called FAFTs. Do you feel that touring and recording allows you enough time to pursue other passions to the fullest?
Yeah, I can tell you this. It's one of those things where before I started doing the video and film stuff, I knew there was something else out there creatively. There was an outlet that I was seeking out, and I wasn't sure what it was at first. I started writing for a magazine last year, which I wrote a whole 12-month series on the do-it-yourself musician stuff for a magazine. And as that was kind of approaching, we were shooting a video for Here Comes the Light, and we had an idea to shoot a video for it. And I ended up kind of writing the screenplay and getting with the guy who is my partner now with my production company. And the two of us kind of directed and produced that video, which turned into the film thing. So we're kind of doing the film thing, which I felt like that was the creative outlet that I was looking for away from the music. I had the music that you could listen to, but now I've got a visceral thing, which sometimes they go together, sometimes they don't. And that's just a fun thing where, unlike music, I could sit down and play a song now, and I've got a song now, but in the film world, I'll come up with an idea now, but I may not see it on film for 2 years from now. So that gives me the freedom to work on a screenplay or work on a film in between what I'm doing with the band. We've got a short film that goes into production in January, right before we leave the tour, and then I probably won't even get to the post till after tour. But that's okay, I've got time to sit there and think about it, and I take my computer on the road, and I edit on the road and do all that, which that's kind of one of those things where I'm not under any kind of gun for a studio, per se, because I don't have any deadlines. When the film's ready, the film's ready. So that, to me, it's not necessarily in the way, and I'll never allow it to get in the way. With the t-shirt company, that's something that Griff, our drummer Griffin, is my partner in that. That's something we've been talking about doing that forever. We always talked about we should come up with these funny shirts that we always, you always see a movie or you hear something, you're like, man, I wish that was on a t-shirt. And I was like, why don't we just put them on t-shirts? So we just decided to take a little bit of money that we had aside and just fire down on it. But the only thing about that that's tricky is the way that that's set up. It's all holidays. So we're doing Christmas now. Next week we'll start working on St. Patrick's Day stuff. So there's always new lines of t-shirts getting ready to come out, designs being made, shirts being printed. So the only thing that we're not doing ourselves is printing the shirts. So everything else we're all doing in-house. And I've got an artist management company, media group that I own as well, which I've got another band on my roster. This record is about to come out in January. So tour ended yesterday for me. Pre-release for this other band's record started this morning. So now I've focused from my band to another band that I'm putting their record out.
You'd like to put the name of the management company, the band, out right now so I can put it on the screen?
It's called the David Koonce Media Group, DKMG for short, so it's on the logo. The band is called Seven Stone Riot, which they're great guys, man. They sound a little bit like Seven Dust. They're kind of in that genre, which is kind of cool. It's a little different than what we're playing, which I think that's why I like it.
A little darker, new metal tinge, maybe.
Yeah, it's a lot of heavy guitar riffs. It's really drum and guitar riff based, and they're really, really great guys, and they're really eager to learn. And I think that's why I kind of liked them. They kind of reminded me of our band 10 years ago, and I kind of told them, I can get you to a certain point, Um, but what I don't want to happen is I need you to work with me, not me work for you. So I'm kind of at the same time helping these guys get where they need to be, but at the same time I'm teaching them lessons that they need to learn, and they're learning the industry at the same time, which is kind of fun. We spend all our time trying to figure this whole thing out on our own with nobody showing us what to do, and it's kind of fun to take that knowledge and give it to somebody else and be like, here's kind of a rough path on how to get there. Wear a helmet, but it's cool to pass that information on.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to check them out. You at home should as well, because the more you check them out, then the more money David gets, unless you steal their music.
Unless you steal their music. Or just check these guys out, man. That's what's cool about music. There's always discussions about like the business side of music, which is a big part of it, but to be a musician, you have to be an artist at the same time. And the main thing to me is the money side of it is just a side effect to it. It's like the music part is an art, and what you want people to do is to see your art, experience your art, what you're trying to express, how people connect to that. To me, that's the main thing. So that's kind of what I like to express with the other band.
So we've established that you're going in to record a record that's going to come out 2015, 2016. What else is next for Within Reason, and when are we going to see and or hear it?
We are launching our second single in January, and it's going to be Here Comes the Light. That song we hope will hit radio the second week of January, and it will be accompanied by the music video that I directed. We'll come out with it as well, which I think is already kind of out, but it hasn't officially launched as a single yet. So
it's a very good song for all of you. You should check it out. I like it a lot. Actually, as some of you who are watching this may know, I do the PA announcing for all my school's baseball games, and I play it at the end of every North Broward win.
Oh, nice work.
Give you a little publicity, more money to you.
Very cool.
Now, speaking of North Broward, we've got a lot of college-bound students here at North Broward with a passion for music. Do you have any advice that you'd like to share that might help them along?
As far as doing what, going to college?
Pursuing their passions.
Is what? I'm sorry. Say again.
Pursuing their passion for music.
Yeah, don't stop doing it. It's really easy to give up on this thing. That's why, there's always 50 million bands out there that try to do it, and it's not easy. And a lot of people think it is, but it's the hardest job I've ever had in my life, because you're constantly expressing yourself through your full emotion, and you're trying to do this thing that you want to do, and there's always people that are going to tell you you're not good, or you're not worth it, or you're wasting time. That's the biggest thing that I heard for a long time. It's like you're wasting your time. It's tough. Like, you guys are at the age where you're going to go to college, and you're probably going to have 4 years where if you're pursuing the music thing, it's going to be great. But when you get out of college and you're still trying to play music, and all your friends or people are getting big jobs and having kids and getting married, and their lives are taking off, and you're still that guy that's still in the trenches trying to play music, it's very difficult to see past that. That's something that we had to do. It was difficult for us that all of our buddies that weren't playing music were having like these big jobs, and their lives are moving forward, and we were still the guys road dogging it around trying to figure out like this thing isn't even worth it. Stick with it. Don't give up on it is the main thing. Any advice I can give to you.
So, unfortunately, we have come to the interview, unless you don't want it to be.
Whatever, man. I got nothing going on.
Well, this is my last question, because if I would have had more, but I would have written them in.
Sure.
When is Within Reason coming back to South Florida?
I think we're going to be back first of the year. We were just there recently, right? We were in Titusville recently. No?
Missed you guys!
Yeah, we were there with Fuel like 3 weeks ago, maybe. I can't remember when it was.
With Fuel? I'm a little upset now.
Yeah, we were just there. It was raining. But we're coming back, though. I know there's something going down at that same place. It was in an outdoor park, the outdoor kind of festival thing in March. I don't know if we're going to do that particular show in March, but I know first of the year we're going to be back down there for sure, no doubt about it. Because I know we got some radio targets down in the Orlando area that we want to hit. So we'll be back down there before you know.
Orlando's, actually, it's about 3 or 4 hours north of here. But the next time you guys come down to the Boca Raton, Fort Lauderdale area, that's where we are.
How far are you from Fort Myers? You pretty good drive from there?
Fort Myers is on the other coast.
Other coast?
It's about an hour and a half, 2 hours.
There's a good chance we're going to do a Fort Myers show and a Jacksonville show.
You're doing Fort Rock and Welcome to Rockville?
Most likely. It hasn't been announced yet. I know they're still working out details, but most likely. So that could mean we'll kind of. The thing about Florida is it's like a big cul-de-sac. Like you have to go down there.
You got to start there, or you got to end there.
Yeah. So we'll probably do a couple of shows in the area if we're going to go down there, which is good news.
I'll tell you what, I've already got my tickets for Rockville, and I actually just applied for a press pass there. Hopefully they'll let us with Brainwash. So hopefully I'll be able to see you there.
Yeah, man, you know what? We did that show last year, and
that was the first time I saw you.
Yeah,
that's how I learned about you guys.
Press there last year?
Yeah, it was last year. I remember because the first time I learned about you guys, I looked up the set lists of the bands that were there, and I was like, okay, I might as well see the bands that I don't know on here, get a little bit of knowledge about them, and the first song I heard was Enemy.
Yeah, so, Rockville's awesome. I'm hoping we get to do it. I want to do it every year. That is a super cool festival. Fort Rock's cool, too. But we'll definitely hook up, man. If you're there, we'll definitely hang out for sure.
Oh, we should definitely hang out. I have to thank you so much for all of your time answering my questions. I know I had way more than was on the papers here.
Oh, it's all good, man. I like hanging out and talking.
Yeah, you are awesome. The band, if you haven't figured it out already, is Within Reason. After the Crawl EP, some untitled stuff coming out in the next year or so. You should all check it out. Thank you so, so much.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on.
We'll keep in touch.
Yes, sir.
Bye.
See you later.